The second series of the day. Let's hit it off with Minigun versus Crank. Really nice. We have 5 series total today. Of course, this is our second match, as I just said. We have a winner's match directly after that, a loser's, and then we have the decider. Whirlwind will be our first map of choice. In the top left-hand position is the red Protoss. It's going to be root for root Minigun. A lot of root players here in the round of 32. His opponent over in the top right-hand position, blue Protoss. It is Crank. Whirlwind, definitely one of those interesting maps when it comes to PvP, as you can hide so much. Stargate Tech, Twilight Council Tech, Dark Templar Tech. I mean, realistically, it does not make sense to commit some sort of unit to search around the whole map. So normally you're scouting, especially for proxy Stargates, in your third bases, either of these, and sometimes the fourth bases. Very rarely will you see the middle of the map, because of course this Xel'Naga Tower can see it. But sometimes, just sometimes, I've seen proxies over here, and on the other side over here. Just, you know, to have that little space where it's like, well, you know, even if you get the tower here, it's going to be outside of range. It's not in your normal pathing to look out for it. But it gets kind of crazy as you go into that mid-game stage. Like, there's so many different things that could be attacking you, whether it's oracles, dropped units, Dark Templars, Blink Stalkers. It gets kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think... I think, however, in Heart of the Swarm, PvP is pretty stable these days, though. Even with kind of the build order variation, I think usually it plays out to a situation where both players are in about an even position in mid-game, despite some build variances. The only things that kind of make it dicey is if one player decides to expand and the other player doesn't.
Yeah.
Then you kind of have a game that can easily tilt one way or the other. But if both players expand at about the same time, both players will be in even positions.
It's so interesting with Protoss because I feel like the Mothership Core, the real purpose for it was to allow Protoss players to be a lot more stable, right? They can defend against a lot more ranges. No longer will you see 3-gate, like just all-ins and it work because the Mothership Core exists. But I feel like the Mothership Core has actually done the opposite and said, well, you know that I can make a Mothership Core. I don't even have to make it right away because you have to be worried that I have Photon Overcharge, right? And you can play that in not only this matchup, PvP, but also PvT, PvZ. You can do it in every single one of these matchups where it's like, well, I'm not going to attack with, you know, 3 Stalkers or 6 Zealots or 6 Zerglings even because of the Mothership Core. And that's what makes it so interesting. How greedy do you want to play? That's what Protoss, I feel like, has come down to a lot of these matchups and a lot of these builds.
Yeah, kind of because of that, though, we see aggression a lot of the time in PvP these days. One of the most common builds is 2 or 3 gate pressure, with maybe 5 or 6 Stalkers, just because sometimes the opponent will try to get away with a very quick expansion off of 1 to 2 gates.
That's right.
And then even with the Mothership Core, you only have 1 overcharge. As soon as that's down, they usually kill the Nexus.
That's right. I mean, that's also important to note. You see a lot of punishing builds popping out, and we can see a Twilight Council is coming out for Crank, but over on the other side, Minigun is just opting to do a very passive 3 gateway style. Normally a Robo pops out directly behind this, but he is starting some pylons all around the map. Probably going to put pressure on. This is normal. This isn't normally to kill your opponent. It's more so to put on a lot of pressure. Yes, you have like killing blows, but you're trying to just keep your opponent honest. And we'll see how it works as 3 Stalkers are going to pop out here in front. No, only 2 Stalkers, excuse me, and a single sentry all the way in back.
I think you should be able to get a cancel on that Nexus if you just saw Crank start.
You most certainly will. Dark Trine is about halfway done, and here the attack has started. 3 Stalkers going to get in here. And you should see, based on this Nexus timing, there is some sort of tech popping out here. Nice force field going to stop those Stalkers from popping into the base. Where is the Robo? Is going to be placed? Yes, it is.
Yeah, and I think we'll see a sentry warped in by Minigun back at his base pretty soon.
Yeah, it should be. And this probe over here is a perfect indicator to tell him, okay, yes, there definitely is probably going to be some sort of Dark
He just kind of walked in the base and saw the Dark Shrine too.
Oh, well, that helps. There it is. And it has finished, by the way. Pylon is about to pop out here, and the Dark Shrine, or the Dark Templars haven't been placed over here. He's waiting for this.
Yep, he's got a sentry warped in, 2 Stalkers in the ramp, and I think he should have no trouble dealing with this.
Yep. And I feel like Minigun is in a pretty good position to defend this. He's going to let this 1 Stalker take a little bit of damage, and then puts the perfect force field. Going to warp in another one, And that's just enough time to get this one observer out. So naturals are going to go down. As we were saying, Photon Overcharge makes all of these players very, very safe in the early game stages. Income tab showing 29, Harvesters to 27.
Do you think we're going to see Minigun go for some pressure pretty soon? He has a lot of Stalkers in the field now. I think it could be a good move maybe to attack. I'm not sure if he will, but he could.
It's a tough move to make, though. I mean, you don't know how many Dark Templars are going to be warped in behind this.
I think he's going to, though. We have a second observer in the map. Or, I mean, it could just be to go across the map and scout, but...
Yeah. I think most of the time this is going to be just a scout. The reason why I say that is because as soon as Dark Templars are on the map, it could be 1, 2, 3 Dark Templars, and it could do some severe damage to your economy. And what do you actually warp in at home to defend against something like that? What if it's 2 Dark Templars and a Zealot, and the Zealot chases any Stalkers that pop out, and then the Dark Templars are just chucking away at those probes? So that's why it's so difficult to actually do something like that. And after getting the robotics facility, that's a lot of opportunity cost. Getting the observers, it's a lot of opportunity cost for potential Stalkers. You're looking at 250 guests. That's 5 potential Stalkers that could be out in the field. Instead, is invested just to parrying the Dark Templars.
So it looks like both players are just going for macro. Minigun going for the quick Robo Bay, going for Colossi Tech. I think Crank, he hasn't turned it down yet. He could still do that, or he could go for a charge that Archon, Immortal kind of composition.
A little drop with Dark Templars going into the main base. Let's see if Minigun actually reads this. Oh, look, actually double tech. And we are on the screen of Crank right now, trying to do a lot of damage against both sides. But look at this Minigun fending this off really, really nicely and taking very, very little losses. So 750 resources lost for both players, as they're pretty equivalent. Oh, never mind. 39 Harvesters, 28. That is pretty substantial.
Yeah, I think Minigun actually looks like he lost 7 probes there. One of them was the scouting probe, so he lost 6 to the DT harass.
It's not that much, though, considering, you know, the Dark Templars dying, but, of course, the probe difference is pretty substantial. And still no Colossus out in the field for Minigun, so that investment going into the Robo Bay, not looking to be worth it right now.
Yeah, I like Crank's position a lot right now. In addition to having a nice worker lead, he has a Warp Prism on the map now, which will help a lot in the mid game.
And I think style is just so much better. Normally you don't do this style as Protoss, especially in Wings of Liberty and even the beginning of the Heart of Storm when things were being figured out. You don't do this style because of the fact that it's so easy to just get a single Colossus, push out with a lot of sentries, a lot of Stalkers, your Immortals, and you have force fields and your opponent doesn't. But now all of a sudden, because the Dark Shrine is just so cheap, because it comes out so fast, you're able to just merge those Archons really quickly to react to something like that, and then it enables your whole force to really crush. That's why it just works out so much better, and that's why Colossus strategies have kind of been phased out. They're still very, very good, don't get me wrong. And it is stylistic, but that's why Colossus just, they pin you, because you no longer have that ability to be super aggressive. Immortal doing a little bit of good damage, killing, looks like two pylons and potentially a Stalker.
Looks like he's just
Actually,
going to fight these Stalkers.
Wow, that's actually some... Wow, this is some cool micro, and you can see he's picking up some of these Stalkers. Wow, or excuse me, some of the Immortals. Now finally that one Immortal will die, but not before he's going to take out a couple more units. This is really, really cool micro coming out from him.
Do you think it was worth it, though? Losing 2 Immortals? I mean, it's not the cost that's the problem, it's just the production time on the Robo that he's losing.
I think it actually does make sense to do something like that, because if you look in terms of just supply and surface area on your big supply, you can see that he doesn't have a lot to stop like Blink Stalkers coming in from the side now. Right? Normally there would be a ton of Stalkers just stopping that from happening.
Yeah, but I don't think we see him getting the Blink tech, so I think in this case it might actually work out okay for Minigun. The Stalkers aren't going to help him too much against his composition from Crank anyways, and losing a Warp Prism and both the Immortals, it's kind of a decent loss. Even
something like Zealots and Charge, it just slows things down so incredibly much. Because, I mean, if you look at it, that's maybe 10 supply that he lost there, maybe a little bit more. It does delay the push of Minigun. I feel like if he does something like this, it's so incredibly risky. Because, again, Whirlwind is a very large open map. You can get good surrounds, and especially with Archon Immortal, That's what it really relies on, and Whirlwind kind of features that.
Yeah, do you think we'll actually see a push then from Minigun? He's starting his third base now, and he has 2 Robos producing Colossi. Maybe he'll just aim for a very high Colossi count, and then try to hit a timing before Tempest are out. Maybe with 8 or 10 Colossi.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge possibility. I don't think he's going to go for Tempest. I mean, I know we've seen that before in the Huangsin games when he played up against Max Zed, but overall, getting Tempests in this position is just, it's too expensive.
Okay.
You need a lot more than 3 bases, or you need to be sitting a lot more passively for this time. I think what's going to happen is Crank is just going to mass out with a ton of units. He's going to actually hit the 200 supply way before Minigun does, and there's going to be a big timing. And I say that because of how slow Colossus are to produce. 200 gas, that is a full base of gas, almost a full base of gas for every 60 seconds that you're producing them. So you literally only have Zealots that you can produce in that minute, maybe 1 Stalker if you're lucky. It's not that much to work with. That's why you need to wait a lot longer. Whereas Zealots make a lot of sense with this composition for Crank, so he's able to get a much higher count.
We do see a Stargate finishing up though for Crank, so I think maybe he is going for that. I think maybe he decided he doesn't want to try to risk it against the timing. Maybe he thinks it's better than Minigun, and he doesn't want to possibly lose with a failed timing attack.
That's true. Minigun is pushing out as well. Supplies are looking at 129 or 135 to 161 in favor of Crank. Crank looks like he wants to take another... Nope, that's not his pylon. Never mind. Upgrades, really quick. +2 attack for Crank. 1-1 for Minigun. And yeah, you're right. It is going to be that Tempest strategy. He's not maxing out.
Minigun has a possible timing though before Tempest did.
Yes.
He just finished 5 gateways at his third base, so I think we might be seeing him head out for a timing pretty soon here. I think he should know that there's a possibility of Tempest being on the way, because against a composition like Colossi, the most common transition, if you do one, is Tempest.
No. I do feel like overall Tempests are normally, after the first major engagement, I just feel like that's a lot better. That way you have more passive time. This, as you said, there are a lot of timings that you can hit, but here it is. The first, maybe, nope. Engagement is not going to happen here.
Big warping back in Minigun's main base by Crank.
So it's going to ravage the base, doing a lot of damage against the probes, at least stopping the time. It looks like he's going to unpower a lot of these buildings. Big Artosis pylon powering a lot of gateways here and a single forge. Dark Templar is going to be warped in from both players, and it looks like Crank will get out of here. In the meantime, he is reestablishing his position. Units all in the center of the map, able to take a lot from this. Now dropping into the third base, doing damage against this 1 photon cannon. It looks like Crank will be fended off here. Still doing damage at the main, though.
He's accomplished his goal, though. He's buying a lot of time, and he's going to have at least 4 Tempest on the field before any aggression can come out of Minigun. And that's going to be tough for Minigun to deal with, especially with the army disparity.
That is amazing that he's able to do that. I mean, that's why I do feel like you were absolutely right. Minigun needed to actually push out before those Tempests pop out. But as soon as he pushed out, instantly there was that Warp Prism from all the way long ago in the main base. Now there is Minigun's own attack coming in here. 4 Dark Templars going to do a lot of damage into the main base. And also looking to do damage at the third base.
Not too much support for these Colossi, though.
Yeah, this is going to be a little dicey. Remember, Tempest do extra damage against those Colossus, and they go down surprisingly fast. Minigun will see those Tempests, and he's like, well, I'm out of here. He needs Archons in this composition. And look at how much damage is being done at the main base. All the gateways getting unpowered. A lot is going down here, and both players are just harassing each other to a point where it's just so incredibly hard to keep going.
Can Minigun get this Nexus snipe, though? This could be a big deal if he can get that. He has to get away quickly.
He's going to take a lot of damage, though. The Colossus, is there any recall? No, I don't see any.
Yeah,
there
he has some other support.
Okay. He's losing Colossus, though, so incredibly fast. And there it is, the recall. But, nope, he won't lose anything else. Still, as you can see, in the third base and in the main base, there was a lot of damage being done. But still, the same units are doing damage against Crank's main. And he is able to take out a lot. Let's take a look at the units lost tab. It does look like a lot more has been lost for Minigun than for Crank. Income tab showing 48 to 47, so they're very equivalent. But look at those supplies. That is a big difference. Army tab, 68 to 115 supply. And you can really see how effective those Tempests have been this game.
And just the composition is much better for Crank.
Oh
too.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Once you get the Tempest out against Colossi, I feel like the Colossus is almost useless in Minigun's army. If Crank has good target firing, they just fall so quickly. I think is it 4 shots that kills a Colossi?
I'm honestly not sure, but it is something very, very fast. I mean, you don't have to wait that long because they get that extra damage against massive units. Of course, Colossus are massive units. So we'll see. I don't know, man. I don't know what Minigun can do in this position. It's so difficult just because he has to overwhelm Crank's army, right? That's the only way. You need to get into a position where you can actually have your Colossus firing against the main army, and then your Tempest are having to worry about other things. They have to worry about the Archons approaching and the Stalkers approaching. But when you have your own Archons and Immortals that are stopping everything from that happening, it's very hard to do that. So I actually feel like Minigun has to get the right concave, the right positioning in order for him to actually kill this army composition. He has to actually surround those Tempests and get in range with maybe Stalkers or Archons or something.
It's going to be tough, though, in this map.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure where he can attack, that he can get a good concave.
I don't think he can. He has to wait until Crank makes a mistake, moves out into the middle of the map. He's even terribly behind in the army supply. Now Dark Templar again going into the 4th base of Minigun. Constant pressure. And going over to the natural now with the Dark Templar and a lot of Zealots. And he's going to probably be doing good damage over here as well. Down goes the cannon. And Minigun forced to retreat. And that should give map control over to Crank, which he should take immediately. Crank playing this so well, by the way.
Yeah, Crank is playing very well.
Main base now being harassed by a couple of Zealots. And again, the 4th base looks like it's going to be canceled here. Observer will get over barely in time, but it looks like the Nexus is going to finish one more swipe. And down it goes. The killing blow to that one Nexus. Dark Templar warped into the main base. And look, there is a couple of Dark Templars defending, or excuse me, dancing. As Minigun tries to put on his own aggression, but when it comes down to it, I mean, this is way too much damage. Minigun trying to just defend against it with the bare minimum, but every single time comes up a little bit short, taking a little bit too much damage. Now maxed out Protoss army, 197 supply. A lot of Archons, a lot of Immortals, and a lot of Tempests are awaiting the army of Minigun. And I feel like Minigun, he's in a position where his Colossus, you're absolutely right. Again, Mike, they're never going to be able to do any damage. They're just empty food.
These Warp Prisms have done so much damage to Minigun this game. If you look at the workers killed, Minigun's actually lost 71 probes this game.
Wow.
And that's a tremendous amount. You actually see he barely has any mining going on his 3rd base right now. So Minigun's basically on a 1-base economy at this moment.
Not looking too good, and Minigun knows that. He's going to be pushing forward. Probably not the best decision, but he does have Storm to help out with that extra bit of AoE still. I feel like it's not going to be enough. Look at how many units there are. And here it comes in. Target fire onto those Colossus. Tempest get a couple of good shots. Nice time warps, though, and look at that. He's kiting everything back, using Storm on all those Archons. Yes, it doesn't do a lot of damage, but it does do some AoE, and now he's going to fully engage. But look at that burst. It just kills every single one of those Archons really fast. The Tempests are going to take out the Colossus incredibly fast. And Crank will take game number 1 on Whirlwind. Played